Noble men and women, gather round. What waits ahead is a lavish feast, decorated by the best money can buy and surrounded by only the finest. This is the 15th century, and this is ballet. Ballet originated during the Italian Renaissance of the 15th century. Here, noblemen and women would gather around to watch such spectacles that were considered a true delicacy. Originally, dancing masters would teach certain steps to the nobility. These steps were limited and not yet as bold as the ballet that we have come to recognize now. The moves were basic and simple. The nobility that were often taught these moves participated in performances such as wedding dances. It wasn't until the 16th century that ballet began to grow, and the moves and the terms were soon to become established. An Italian woman by the name of Catherine, wife of King Henry II of France, was a lover of the arts, and she supported ballet in the French courts through funding. It was her endless love and support that helped propel this art form forward. By 1661, ballet was on the rise and swiftly moved from the courts to the stage. It was traditionally paired with operas. Here, the performers would demonstrate strategic moves that coincided with the music, but were not yet at the level of the bold and beautiful moves of today's ballet. Ballet was still in a simple form, until one ballet master dared to rebel against the concept of opera ballet, believing that ballet itself could stand alone. He believed that the ballet had the power to tell a story through the swift, delicate, yet powerful moves. Thanks to Noverre, the dramatic narrative that is ballet was given life. After we gracefully enter the 19th century, here we open a brand new door to ballet. Early ballets, such as Giselle, were created during the Romantic period, which gives way to the title of Romantic ballets. This was a powerful period, as it gave birth to the idea of dancing on the tips of one's toes, which is known amongst dancers as point work. This became the new norm of ballerinas. However, as beautiful as this form is to look at, it comes at an ugly price, in accordance with what it's really like to be a ballerina. The technique for point dancing requires the dancer to arch his or her foot in an extreme manner, while pointing his toes vertically and held in said position for an extended period of time. This has a tendency to not only jam the joints in your toes, but at times your foot. And you are considered lucky if this is the smallest of offenses. Ballet demanded the attention of onlookers and thirsted for the dramatics. During the 19th century, Russia could not resist and pushed ballet to heights that it had not yet seen. The Nutcracker, the Sleeping Beauty, and Swan Lake were all born and have been carried over to be considered classics, beautiful classics. This is where choreographers and composers pushed dancers to perform complicated sequences of leaps, turns, and leg extensions, all in classical technique with the right form and turnout, the outward extension of the legs from the hip. The moves were daring and the music was bold. This all came with the classical tutu, a short outward skirt made of tulle. It was designed to show off the dangerous and difficult moves, and of course to showcase the dancer's legs, the Pittsburgh Ballet. As we approach the early stages of the 20th century, we find two Russian choreographers willing and wanting to take ballet to new places. Sergei and Michael began to experiment with the traditional costumes and movements of ballet. Because of this, other choreographers took it upon themselves to step out of the norms of ballet and push the limits. Unfamiliar movements were practiced, and music became dissonant. The 20th century and its daring visionaries introduced plotless ballets. Straying away from the concept of ballets telling stories, plotless ballets gave way to the expression of movement with no storyline. This strikes wonder into the hearts of the audience by filling their bodies with emotion. Ballet 101. Throughout the centuries, ballet has been tweaked, revamped, and is constantly changing, but it still embraces the power to captivate its followers. Ballet has changed and will continue to change. What does remain the same, though, is the physical demand behind the glorious art form. Performing one of the most difficult, disciplined, and beautiful art forms requires one to be devastatingly fit. A typical day in a professional dancer's life begins with a morning class to warm up and to refine their technique. This is then followed by 4 to 6 hours of rehearsal, typically an hour break, and then an evening performance. Constant work at the bar, constant classes on technique, limited time to eat, and more practice and stretching and technique and classes. This demanding schedule is continuous. Not only are ballerinas required to uphold a certain standard of stamina and strength, but ballet schools also seek a certain standard of physique. Now, typically, instructors will seek out those with high arches, flexible torsos, a small bust, slim hips, long legs, and long arms. The Atlanta Ballet. Though some may view this style of dance as vain and unhealthy, ballet will never stop its desire and appeal. It will continue to lure people into its sorrow, its madness, finesse, joy, and wonder, captivating the hearts and the minds of the people craving the experience of ballet, and stealing the hearts, the minds, bodies, time, and the lives of the people that dare to live the life known as ballet. The after effects of the balancing body of an American ballet.